Welcome to those of you who have joined us so far to our analyst briefing. Today it's focused on digital innovation in oncology. My name is Julian de Salaberry and I'm the CEO and founder of Galen Growth. For those who don't know us very well, Galen Growth is the preferred digital health innovation partner to industry and investors. We are trusted by blue chip clients such as McKinsey, most pharmacos, medical device companies, insurance companies, and the list continues from there. Just switching off the things that go bing and bong on my computer. Everything that we do is powered by our core solution called Health Tech Alpha, which is the world's leading digital health private market data intel and insights platform about all of the digital health innovation going on across the globe. Why are we the preferred platform? Well, because we are unmatched in the digital health catalog and data library that we've built up. Our taxonomy and definition and tagging of digital health is now an industry standard, and we provide them with tangible insights, not just the mere generalities and clickbait that many other news aggregators and data providers bring to the table. And of course, this is impossible because it's powered by an unrivaled team of experts who do nothing but digital health. So what does that mean? That means when they subscribe to Health Tech Alpha and work with Galen Growth, they get better decisions, more alpha, and greater productivity. Without shying away from that particular infomercial, the report today is also powered by the platform, and the author and architect of that analysis is with us today, Dr. Sarah Schmachtenberg, and she leveraged the platform for this analysis. Today's focus is, as I said, digital health innovation in oncology. What's happening to date? It's first only, I guess, analysis. I've not seen anyone getting to this level of depth and sharing that data. It is an in-depth study of the innovation in that key TA, and we will drill into the underpinning diseases within that TA today. And it's based, of course, on the premium report. So there is a premium report. Some of you may have downloaded it, some 70 plus pages of data, intel and match insights, and we will be leveraging that today. So for those of you who have not had a chance or the opportunity of downloading the premium report, then you will get some lucky insights as to what's happening in that report. Scope of analysis is our usual. It is digital health innovation, it's private ventures, it's more than 14,000 of them, and it's private ventures have been incorporated after 2002. So let's start. I'm very keen to dive into this analysis and share it with you, largely because, as I said, it is looking at the most comprehensive catalog of digital ventures in the world, and it does put us at a complete advantage. The recent CB Insights Q1 report finally came out 7 weeks after the end of Q1, and underreports the digital health deal activity by 50%. And PitchBook did something similar last April by reporting deal activity by some 80%. So as you can see, being a generalist platform leaves you at a very large disadvantage when it comes to really getting into the detail of what is happening truly in digital health innovation across the globe. Sarah, let's look at oncology. Welcome. According to the WHO, prevalence of oncology is that, roughly speaking, 40% of men and women will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives. That's a pretty scary stat, and one that I think we often forget. And that means that most people on this call, I would imagine, know someone or have potentially themselves found themselves in that position. I know I have been, not personally, but a relative of mine. Q1 funding is down, in fact, substantially down Q on Q across all regions. We've had the Pear Therapeutic bankruptcy, and of course, the outcome of the bankruptcy court announced very recently, and we've seen funding strength drop yet further, and that is a measure of which ventures have actually raised funding in the last 18 months. So it's a pretty grim landscape where we find ourselves as we look at innovation. Innovation that is pretty critical to the management of such a prevalent disease in the human race. So let's start with that question, if I may, which is why digital health innovation in oncology? Why is it our focus for this thematic?
That's a good question, Julian. Thanks for having me here. Good to see all of you with us today. Oncology is and will always be a big topic within digital health, right? Julian asked the question, why oncology? And the reason is quite simply, if we go to the key insights, which you have in the report, the big number is venture funding. Oncology is and has always been the top funded area in digital health. There's a lot of focus on oncology ventures, whether it be for diagnosis, whether it be for precision medicine, whatever it may be, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Oncology is just a big topic in digital health, and so it's something that investors put a lot of money in. It's something that big pharma, biotech companies, insurance companies, put a lot of effort into developing partnerships. And what you'll see here, what I mean in numbers, oncology is just on top as far as digital health, with being the red bubbles. Over the past 5 years, it's always been the top funded therapeutic area. It even did manage to squeeze over top of mental health in 2021 during the height of the pandemic, right? So that's really why we're focusing on today, because it's just a big deal in digital health. Now, Q1 2023, I think is where we're going to go. You're probably your next question, Julian. Here, the red bubble's not on top, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the grim environment I described, and the one that anyone in digital health who really understands digital health and is digging in through their natural intellectual curiosity will say, well, listen, oncology is always been, as you can see from the chart up until now, a firm favorite. So where does this grim funding environment leave oncology when it comes to digital health innovation?
Yeah, it's not on. It wasn't on top in Q1 2023, but to be honest, Q1 is not usually the strongest quarter for oncology, so there are no alarm bells going off as to why we're not seeing on top. Of course, full alarm when you see the value of overall funding in digital health, and if we dig into oncology in particular, what you see is what everyone's pretty much talking about, right? That peak at the end of 2020 here, oncology really did peak Q4, Q1 2021, and then the gradual decline with Q1 2023 being really dismal low, with the least amount of deals, right, since we've seen in more than 5 years. Doesn't look particularly good, and you see the value share of oncology in global digital funding, right? Looking over all therapeutic areas, it usually captures about 12%, from anywhere from 11 to 13% of that value share. Q1 only captured 9%. Again, like I said, typically Q1, if we look back across the funding, funding comes and goes across the quarters. Q1 isn't really the strongest quarter, oftentimes, so we're not too worried quite yet in 2023. We do believe it will come back, and we will see large funding rounds going on over the course of 2023.
So, funding strength is weakening. We see that on quarter, which means that some 70% of digital ventures out there are running out of funding. So we'll see some restructuring, we'll see some retrenching. What are some of the other, I guess, knock-on effects of that funding stress, let's say, in the system? And how do we see that influencing the way digital innovation ventures in oncology are reacting?
What we've seen during over the past year, and what we expect to see more of, are the M&A activity. In 2021, you had an explosion of IPOs, of SPACs coming out, as well as M&A activity. But now, as the valuations are dropping, right, and there's less funding available, we see those IPO SPACs going to nothing, more or less. And we don't expect to see them this year. Just the valuations are too low. It doesn't make any sense to IPO at this point. But the M&A activity is then really growing. I mean, look, just in the first quarter of this year, we've had 7 acquisitions, and all of last year we had 18. right? So you're way more than 25% in your M&A so far this year. And it's the culmination, right? It's the perfect storm we've talked about. It's, ventures, young ventures can't find the funding. More mature ventures, they gathered funding throughout the pandemic, right? And when the funding was good, they've gotten products onto the market, right? They're increasing their partnerships, and really they're mature enough to start building out their portfolio and acquiring the younger ventures who are now at a discounted price because the valuations are low, and building out their portfolio, creating more of that platform solution that we all know digital health needs, right? These siloed solutions, siloed point solutions just aren't working. We need them to comprehensive platforms that ventures, more advanced ventures, are now capable of building out in the climate that we're currently in. So good news and bad news. Good news, we're going to see better solutions, bigger, better, complete solutions. Bad news is some of those younger ventures might not survive the current, let's say, weather, because the funding is just, it's hard to come by.
Okay, and we'll obviously drill into Europe a bit more in a minute because this focus today is on Europe. But continuing with that context and trying to get beyond that single word oncology, because oncology at the end of the day is a super TA, a cluster TA. I've seen various terms for it. In other words, the term oncology regroups a whole bunch of specific disease areas. So how do we at Gale and Growth break that down, and what insights does that give us?
As you mentioned before, that's the value and the advantage of being specialist in digital health, is that we can take on something like oncology and we can look at it in a much deeper and much more finer lens, right? What you see on the right is the word cloud of all the different types of oncology that we have within Health Tech Alpha, right? We dig into each venture and understand, what are they really looking at? It's not just cancer, right? It is actually thyroid cancer, right? It's actually gastric cancer. And then you're able to better refine your search and find the ventures that you need. Overall, looking at across all the oncology ventures, right? The most prevalent is breast cancer, right? 22% of oncology ventures do have solutions for breast cancer patients. Now, it doesn't mean that they only focus on breast cancer. They could have multiple offerings, right? Multiple solutions that do address different types of cancer patients. Second place is, of course, lung cancer. 20% focused on lung cancer, followed by the colorectal and gynecologic cancers. Right. So we're able to look a little bit deeper and really focus on, okay, what is this venture really doing? Who is really their focus population? And then, of course, maybe that can be carried into other areas that need attention. Now, you're looking across different disease areas. Julian, another way to look at it is across different solutions, right? Oftentimes you have either the venture looks across different therapeutic areas, or they look deeper into one therapeutic area and offer a portfolio of solutions, right? From diagnosis to disease management solutions, right? And that's where, if we look at the different digital health clusters, right, Gale and Growth has industry standard as far as digital health taxonomy, right, with our 18 clusters that describe the different types of products that the ventures are bringing onto the market. And the top cluster in oncology is medical diagnostics. With 357 ventures in medical diagnostics, you have the biggest portion of ventures. Next is research solutions, followed by health management solutions, right? Health management solutions includes the prescriptive analytics. So anything that helps with the treatment plans. Patient solutions then goes into perhaps disease management or digital therapeutics, right? So that's what the ecosystem looks like in just oncology ventures.
Cool. And of course, there's some familiar names there, and it's very interesting to see, of course, the emphasis around medical diagnostics and around research solutions as the current priorities, let's say, as far as investors are concerned when they look at oncology focused ventures. I guess if we look at the environment, we see funding down. Therefore, we start being realistic, I guess, potentially deemed to be slightly negative, pessimistic in terms of where do we see the outcomes come from. Now, we at Gain Growth always had a fairly straightforward point of view about digital health, which is it's a wonderfully vibrant environment. It has substantial number of ventures. Listen, we've catalogued and made visible on Health Tech Alpha near on 14,000 digital health ventures. And I know that we're still working on many more to go live soon. So the catalogue is actually much bigger than 14,000. Now, the outcome of that is a cottage industry, really. We've got a lot of ventures doing often enough a lot of things that are fairly similar. And therefore, there's a need for consolidation. It's a natural outcome of any market. And so, many of the people I talk to on a daily basis will say to me, listen, this current funding scenario caused by dynamics which are external to digital health and external to the venture capital environment are in fact becoming an accelerant to that consolidation. So is it doom and gloom for digital health innovation in oncology? Are we therefore going to see a whole bunch of stuff just hitting the end of the road, falling off the cliff? Or are we seeing something else happening?
You can't really talk about doom and gloom when it comes to digital health. It's still a place where ventures have to move forward because we need it, right? Julie, we published a report on health systems in the US in March to show that, hey, this is the reality, right? They can't move away from digital health. So yes, the funding is going down. Yes, that's across all industries, right? You look at fintech, you look at any other industry, and you see kind of this whole lack of venture funding. What we do look at, though, in addition to funding, of course, we've tracked many other data points, and that's the partnerships, right? If a venture, one thing is to get funding to build your venture. Another thing is to partner with external organizations in order to get your product into the market, right? To get the solution into the market. And that's where we see there's still momentum building, right? The momentum that started, it didn't start in 2021 by any means. It's really been building across the last 8 years that digital health has been alive, more or less. And we're seeing this building of momentum when it comes to partnerships, right? Partnering with pharma companies, partnering with insurance companies, hospitals, universities, right? Like we talked about before, the health systems. These partnerships are really what's helping the ventures get their solutions into the market. There may as well be a commercial interest in the partnerships, so that also helps the venture become more profitable, for example. And therefore, the trend that we see here, the upward trend, going across, there's a bit of a dip in Q1 2023, but they're still way above Q1 2022, right? So they're still looking very bright, and is that partnerships are really growing within oncology and within all of digital health. So that's very positive, and that means the lack in venture funding that we see at the moment, we're hoping is really a temporary thing that's following the market, and the partnerships will continue to push this whole industry forward. As far as just oncology ventures, right? You currently have 19% of all partnerships in digital health are between oncology ventures or ventures focused on oncology, and corporations or other organizations, right? So when you consider oncology only makes up 8% of the digital health ecosystem of ventures, venture volume, they're capturing 19% of partnerships. There's a lot of interest going on still in oncology. So that's really very positive. If we look a little bit deeper into where are these partnerships happening, it's probably no surprise based on what I said earlier. Medical diagnostics is the largest cluster. In oncology, 46% of the partnerships are focused there, right? That's followed by 18% in research solutions, and then health management solutions and patient solutions, right? So that's where the partnerships are occurring. 33% of them are with hospitals, universities, institutions. So they're above pharma companies. For sure, pharma biotech only takes third place. In the middle then are venture to venture partnerships, right? Which is very positive to see this ecosystem building, right? And bringing the solutions together to work with each other. So that's a picture of the partnerships. If we look at Europe in particular, Europe takes third place as far as capturing the total global partnerships. Europe is a smaller landmass, doesn't really surprise me. North America takes first place, Asia Pacific second. So that's really looking at the number of ventures and the number of partnerships they've developed. Europe is sitting comfortably in third place.
So, I mean, it's positive, really, isn't it? If we look at it, we're seeing innovators, to some extent, being forced away from their over-reliance on venture capital, and therefore growing business models that are heavily reliant on venture capital versus true, sustainable business models. So that can only strengthen the environment going forwards. We're seeing M&A growing as a proportion of deal activity, and therefore, hopefully from that, we will see again strengthening of certain businesses by this coalescing of various businesses put together. And an exciting thing, of course, is that we're starting to see a growth in partnerships, which means that there's a continued interest by both innovators as well as the stakeholder system around it in building these partnerships to scale these ventures and therefore bring value to the patient or the HCP, or if in case of pharma, probably directly to their drug pipeline. So I think that's a positive takeaway from this. And we'll continue tracking these as we go forwards. One other positive, certainly one other focus area for us again in growth for the past at least a year has been really drilling into proof points. What exactly is digital health innovation doing? What's it developing, and can it really do or perform what it claims to be doing? So one of those is looking at clinical evidence. And clinical evidence is not applicable to all verticals in digital health. But if you look at it through the lens of therapeutic areas as well as digital health, what does oncology look like? Are we seeing a predominance of much more focus on proof points in clinical evidence in oncology, say, versus other therapeutic areas?
Certainly, oncology is one of the top therapeutic areas when it comes to regulatory approvals, right? And who said in 2022, 54 ventures actually achieved regulatory filings. So that's 54 ventures, that's 10% ecosystem in just 1 year. So we're looking at big numbers and where the ventures are actually most active, and that's medical diagnostics. That's where you typically anyhow have a lot of regulatory filings. So it kind of aligns properly that most oncology ventures are going to need some sort of regulatory filing, clinical trials, or some sort of proof of their solution. Right. Again, in the last 5 years, 51% of the regulatory filings for ventures have been in medical diagnostics, followed by research solutions. So that's really the focus here, and where we're looking now. If we look at how many filings per year, we haven't really seen this year an explosion of filings or anything like that. But we're only we've only looked at the first quarter so far. What we saw is somewhat of a dip for 2021. 2022 held strong as far as the number of filings, and really the light gray that you see, that's Europe. So European ventures are very strong in getting their solution, getting some sort of a filing in place, right, and getting it into the market. This year, 10 out of 12 filings, were filed by ventures founded in Europe. So that's very, very much speaks for the strength of the digital health ecosystem and the rigor that's used here in Europe for those types of solutions.
That's encouraging, although I keep asking myself the question, why would the funding environment volatility in Q1 really be just slowing down regulatory filings? because obviously 22 kind of matched 21. To me, there's no correlation there. Well, there should be no causation, certainly. I'm not sure why there's a correlation, but I guess we'll continue watching that. Let's drill into Europe a bit more in the closing minutes of this analyst briefing. What does the investment landscape look like specifically in Europe then, if we break it down by key countries, for example?
Europe is remaining strong. Let's look at key countries. As you said, Julian, 33% of those ventures are located in the UK. France takes second place with 21%, followed by Germany, right, and then Switzerland. The Nordics and have a substantial amount of ventures also in this area, right? So those are the key markets within Europe for ventures and where they were founded. According to funding distribution, right, it is, I would say, quite similar, right? 62% of that funding in the last 5 years was deployed to ventures in the UK, followed by France, right? Germany was a bit behind, but Switzerland took then quite a big portion of the pie when it came to funding distribution. Okay, so that's generally okay. Where are the ventures located, and where's the funding going within Europe? Europe is growing at, I think in Europe you have 7% of all ventures are focused on oncology, so it's very similar to the global percentage there. And the growth rate in Europe is quite good. You still have about a 12% CAGR as far as the growth of digital health ventures in oncology. So the ecosystem is very strong still. And yes, we see funding down, but partnerships are up, regulatory filings are strong, right? There's no reason to think of any doom or gloom when it comes to oncology in digital health.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always astonished when I look at Europe's digital innovation landscape, just how strong it is in terms of innovation. I just wish that we generally in Europe, innovators as well as other players, we're better at the other ingredients required to actually scale innovation and therefore bring it to the hands of patients. The answer is not the US of A every single time. We just have a few minutes left, Sarah, and I know that this morning we sent an email out to everybody who has subscribed to our newsletter et al., which had a link to access a compendium of 50 of the most promising digital health ventures in oncology. For those of you who received it, feel free to click on the link. You'll get a treasure trove of data straight out of Health Tech Alpha that give you yet more insights as to who's good at digital health innovation. Can we just drill into say one example in the closing minutes so that people get a sense of what does good look like?
Absolutely. Within the report, you'll see a lot of the names, right, of the ventures that have raised funding recently. And so if we look into, let's take for example a Finnish venture that has only received, let's look at Deep Link Medical, because they perhaps have a bit more information and perhaps some filings under their belt. They're a Series B, raising 11 million from grants. And if we jump into Health Tech Alpha, what you see, yes, I am human, actually. We can see the profile of that particular venture. So bear with me for a second, and I can show you what that looks like. I have to log in as well. There we go. Deep Link Medical. It is a really with a focus on digitalizing medical imaging, right? So teleradiology within oncology, and what we see within Health Tech Alpha is really the financial strength, right? They are with their last Series B raise of 10.7 million, actually falling a bit behind their ecosystem, their peers, as far as within oncology in this particular area. The median raise 20 million. So they're falling behind there a little bit. They still have at 62.7 relatively good maturity, and which means that they should have built up enough partnerships across, they have a very strong partnership with Sevier, and have some proof, beginning to develop proof, right, that their solution through that partnership is going to be a sound information. What we don't have too much time about, but what I would like to show you is within Health Tech Alpha, or within the report, we often go into who's partnering, right? Who's actually bringing these partnerships forward, and we can do that also in Health Tech Alpha. Julian, as far as looking quickly into the therapeutic focus area of oncology, just within Europe, because that's not something we have in the report, but we can do that here through Health Tech Alpha. Being able to say very quickly, right, the most prolific partners within digital health oncology is actually AstraZeneca. They're partnering with the most European ventures with the focus on oncology, right, followed by Novartis, Roche, Pfizer. So you see those big pharma companies coming up at the top, really pushing forward the partnerships. NVIDIA, name you don't usually see. Probably most people here in Europe are familiar with NVIDIA, a tech company that works with a lot of startups, right, to help get their big data, right, to get their data analytics up and into their products, right? So the kind of names you would probably expect to see within oncology.
Yeah, NVIDIA certainly provide most of the AI chips for many of the digital health startups looking at vast amounts of data, particularly in the drug discovery research space. In fact, the markets in the US just opened, and NVIDIA just opened 26% up on its price like yesterday. So there's obviously some good news surrounding NVIDIA going forwards. Listen, Sarah, thank you very much for just over time on our agreed time for this analyst briefing. So let's round off. Thank you very much for that. I mean, obviously, you've only just really just scratched the surface of the just wealth of data that sits in Health Tech Alpha and therefore powers the analysis. And of course, the gallop through the presentation today is really just a few of the pages of data that are included in the 70+ report that was published a little bit earlier on this month. And therefore much more does exist in that document. So we thank everyone for their time today. There seems to be no questions, Sarah, so we can probably wrap up. I mean, I'll just give everyone who's left a chance to ask a few questions. I realize we're over time a little bit. We are continuing to publish on a monthly basis, so there will be a new report due out next week, with a deep dive in another key ecosystem of digital health. And so if you're subscribed, then you will receive notification of that. And then, of course, feel free to leverage the hyperlinks in this report to have a look at oncology within digital health across the globe using the filters that, for example, Sarah shared with you this afternoon. Any questions you do come up with after this webinar, I'd like to address to us on a more one-to-one basis, please don't hesitate to write to us at info@galengrowth.com. And so it just leaves me, as there are no other questions, Sarah, to thank you very much for your time this afternoon and to wish everyone a great rest of their day.
Okay. Bye.